I'm Lisa. Standing alone in the now empty banquet hall, the silence was deafening. The stage lights still shone brightly, but there was no one left to clap. Eric, my husband, stood under those lights, breathing hard, his face a mask of disbelief. Just moments ago, I had exposed his fraud right in front of everyone, and one by one, people had walked out, leaving him alone. It all started on that fateful night at the mansion in Alexandria. My husband, Jake, and I were sitting in his sleek black BMW outside the gated estate. The rain was tapping softly against the windshield, and my left knee was throbbing from the long drive from my hometown. Jake adjusted his tie in the mirror for the umpteenth time. "You okay?" he asked, but it was more of a formality than genuine concern. "I'm fine," I replied, looking out at the grand mansion. It was one of those places that reeked of old money and privilege. Jake sighed and said, "Lisa, tonight matters. These are important people." I turned to him and said, "It seems to matter more to you than me. You've already told me not to embarrass you before we even got out of the car." Jake rubbed his forehead, clearly annoyed. "These are important people, Lisa. You know what I mean." I gave a small shrug. I always find it interesting to hear who counts as important. The valet finally opened my door, and the cold air hit my face. My knee protested as I stood up. Jake immediately lowered his voice. "Please don't mention your surgeries tonight. People don't want depressing dinner conversation." I blinked at him. "My surgeries? Really?" I almost laughed, but instead, I grabbed my cane from the back seat. That seemed to embarrass him more than anything I could have said. Inside, the house was exactly what you'd expect from a rich defense contractor's party. Marble floors, oil paintings, and crystal chandeliers that looked like they could swallow a small boat. A string quartet was playing near the staircase, and waiters were floating around with trays of tiny appetizers. Jake transformed as soon as we entered. His shoulders straightened, and his laugh got deeper. He started shaking hands with everyone, acting like the most important person in the room. A woman in a red dress approached him. "There you are," she said. "I thought you ditched us." Jake smiled widely. "This is my business associate, Lily. She's about 32, with perfect blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room." Lily then noticed me. "Oh, you must be Lisa," she said. "Depends who's asking," I replied. She laughed politely, but I could tell she wasn't sure if I was joking. Jake quickly stepped in. "My wife has a dry sense of humor." Lily tilted her head. "So, what do you do now, Lisa?" Before I could answer, Jake jumped in. "She keeps busy around the house." I looked at him. "Around the house? What exactly do you mean?" He gave me that look, the one that said, "You know what I mean." I said, "Apparently, I don't." Just then, someone announced, "General Thompson is here." Jake's entire demeanor changed. General Thompson was a retired fourth-star general, a well-known figure in the military and defense circles. Jake had been talking about this dinner for weeks, as if it was the most important event of his life. General Thompson entered the ballroom, surrounded by a group of men in suits. Conversations shifted towards him like a magnet. Jake immediately stepped forward. "General Thompson, sir," he said. But the general walked right past him and stopped directly in front of me. His eyes widened in recognition. "Well, I'll be damned. Valkyrie," he said. I hadn't heard that name in years. Something tight shifted in my chest. "Been a while," I said. Jake looked completely confused. "You two know each other?" he asked. General Thompson took my hand firmly. "Ma'am Valkyrie, we've all been waiting to meet you. Your wife served this country under conditions most people here wouldn't survive for a minute," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Jake's face drained of color. I spent the next few minutes hiding in the bathroom. It was a marble-clad oasis, but I was in no mood to appreciate it. My knee was stiffening up, and every step was a struggle. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a tired woman, a woman who had been through so much. The dress I was wearing was a little too tight around my waist, a reminder of the steroids I'd taken after my surgeries. When I came out of the bathroom, an older woman named Grace was waiting outside. She was a Marine Corps widow, with sharp green eyes and a kind smile. We started talking, and she told me some home truths about men like Jake. Men like your husband enjoy standing next to sacrifice. It makes them feel taller, she said. I couldn't help but laugh. It's that obvious? She nodded. I watched him introduce you like you were just a piece of furniture. Then, we heard voices coming from the library. One of them was Jake's. He sounded tense. Lisa hasn't been herself lately. She has memory issues and problems with her medications. A man calmly replied, "What does that mean?" Jake said, "She struggles sometimes. She misreads situations." I was shocked. It suddenly made sense why Jake had been acting so strange lately. He had been building a narrative about me being unstable. I stepped into the library. Jake froze mid-sentence. The other man, who introduced himself as Agent Harris from the Pentagon Inspector General's office, looked at me. Jake tried to cover up. "Dana, this is a private conversation." I said evenly, "Please continue." Apparently, I'm confused, and this sounds important. Agent Harris asked if I'd be willing to speak with him privately. Jake immediately said no, but I said, "Tuesday works for me." For the first time that night, Jake looked genuinely afraid. 3 days later, federal agents showed up at my house. Colonel Ramirez was in the middle of them. I recognized him from my time overseas. He held up a folder. "We have a federal warrant regarding Apex Ridge Strategic Outreach." The name hit me like a punch in the gut. I stepped aside and let them in. As they searched the house, I poured coffee for Colonel Ramirez. I asked, "How bad is this?" He stared into his coffee and said, "Bad enough." They moved fast, which usually means money and evidence. Jake came downstairs in a panic. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted. An agent calmly replied, "Federal investigation, sir." Jake looked at Colonel Ramirez. "You brought the military into this." Colonel Ramirez said, "You did." Jake spotted me in the kitchen and realized I already knew something. He tried to get me to say something, but I just looked at him. "What would you like me to say? That this is insane?" Then, they showed me the presentation slides for Apex Ridge investor meetings. There were my photos, my Bronze Star citation, and it said, "Military Advisory Credibility supported by retired Army Intelligence Officer Lisa." I looked at Jake. "You attached my military records to financial fraud?" Jake tried to defend himself. "It's marketing. We were helping veterans." Colonel Ramirez said, "You were billing donor money into shell accounts connected to luxury property purchases." Jake snapped. "You don't understand how consulting works." Colonel Ramirez replied calmly, "I understand how theft works." Just then, my phone rang. It was Lily. She said, "I gave investigators everything: emails, transfers, hotel receipts, the fake veteran outreach reports. And he drafted a statement blaming you if this came out. He said your cognitive issues from military service caused accounting failures." I felt a cold chill run through my body. I looked at Jake, and for the first time in years, I saw him for who he really was. A man willing to sacrifice me to save himself. 2 weeks later, Jake held the fundraiser at a banquet hall overlooking the Chesapeake Bay. I almost didn't go. My knee was swollen, and the thought of another ballroom made me exhausted. But I went. Inside, the place was filled with veterans, politicians, and defense contractors. Jake spent the first half hour pretending everything was normal, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. At 7:30, Jake stepped onto the stage. He started talking about sacrifice and how Apex Ridge was founded to support veterans. He said, and nobody understands service more than my wife, Lisa. She's faced tremendous struggles since leaving the army. That's when I stood up. I made my way to the stage with my cane. Jake's smile flickered. What are you doing? He whispered. This is usually when truth shows up, I said. I took the microphone. My name is Lisa. Some of you knew me by another name once, Valkyrie. For years, I made myself smaller so my husband could feel bigger. I thought that was loyalty, but it was permission. I then pulled out a document. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, Apex Ridge Strategic Outreach had multiple accounts frozen pending federal fraud investigation. The room went silent. Jake grabbed my arm. Stop, he said. I pulled my arm free. No, Jake. I'm introducing people to you. General Thompson stood up and walked out. One by one, people followed him. Jake was left standing alone on the stage, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. 3 weeks after the fundraiser, Jake called me from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. My life had become strangely quiet. I was living in a small rental house near the bay, away from the pretentious parties and the lies. Hello, I said. Lisa, you sound tired, he said. That's because I'm awake, I replied. He asked how I was, and I said, it depends. Are you asking emotionally or financially? He sighed. I miss you, he said. It hurt, but not because I wanted him back. It was because I remembered the man he used to be. The man who had stayed with me in the hospital after my surgeries, the man who had held my hand when I was in pain. I said, you miss being forgiven. He said it wasn't fair, but I told him what he had done wasn't fair either. He said he made mistakes, but I reminded him that he had built an entire business using my military record. He said, I stayed when you were broken. I said, you did, and I was grateful for it. But helping me heal didn't give you ownership of my dignity afterward. He didn't answer for a long time. Finally, he said, I really did love you. I said, sometimes, I think you did. And then I hung up. A month later, the federal charges against Jake became official: wire fraud, misuse of charitable funds, and false financial disclosures. Lily cooperated fully, and most of Jake's so-called friends disappeared overnight. As for me, I started sleeping better. My knees still ached when it rained, and I still had bad dreams sometimes. But I had my name back, my voice, and my peace. And I knew that real strength was not just surviving pain quietly, but letting myself be seen for who I was.